They said everything would be consumed, but not even the fire dared to touch what was sacred. In one of the most fascinating cities in the world, where fictional stories come to life under the spotlight, something real and inexplicable happened. Hollywood, the stage of illusions, witnessed a miracle that even the most skeptical could not deny. In the heart of a devastating fire that reduced an entire set to ashes, the Holy Bible and statues of Mary and Jesus remained untouched, without marks, without stains, as if an invisible force had protected them. Coincidence? A sign? A divine reminder in a world hungry for faith? As the flames consumed everything around, these relics remained in silence, yet screamed a powerful message. What supernatural force preserved what seemed to be just another object in a place overtaken by tragedy? And more importantly, why? If you've ever felt that there is something greater governing the events of this world, or that certain moments carry a meaning beyond logic, get ready. What you are about to discover is not just a story about objects that resisted the impossible. It's an invitation to see beyond the visible, question the unquestionable, and perhaps find something that will transform your own view of life. Keep watching, and the answer may surprise you. Hollywood, the land of dreams and entertainment, known for grand stories and breathtaking events. Since its origins, it has always been the epicenter of fantasy creation. The shimmering lights of its studios are not just a spectacle for the eyes, but also a promise that anything is possible. What the spotlights don't illuminate, however, is what hides in the shadows, in the subtext of the narrative. But this time, what caught attention wasn't a film, nor even a multi-million-dollar production with cutting-edge special effects. What happened in one of the region's most famous studios went beyond the limits of fiction and shocked even the most skeptical, those who were already immune to what could seem impossible. It was something no camera could capture, a scene so surreal it seemed to have come straight from a horror movie script, but with a touch of something ineffable, something divine. A devastating fire. An explosion of flames that, unlike a common event, didn't just bring destruction, but a mystery to be unraveled. The building, erected with such care and adorned with the history of cinema, was reduced to a skeleton of steel and ashes. But amidst this devastation, something inexplicable happened. Something that seemed to defy all the laws of nature. In the midst of desolation, in the searing heat that melted steel and reduced concrete to dust, a Holy Bible and statues of Mary and Jesus remained intact. As if the fire itself had steered clear of them, as if the flames knew that there was something there that could not be touched, destroyed, or even altered. The inevitable question arose: coincidence? Miracle? Divine sign? That late afternoon, the sky tinged with gold and orange contrasted with the black smoke rising, creating an apocalyptic scene. The fire spread with alarming speed, and within moments, the studio became a blazing inferno. Firefighters arrived with their hoses and state-of-the-art equipment, but soon realized that it would be impossible to save anything. The fire was out of control, devastating everything in its path. Every corner, every room, every file seemed to succumb to the relentless power of the blaze. There was no room for anything to survive. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. When, finally, the fire relented and the flames began to die down, a peculiar silence followed. What remained was a scene of destruction that, even for the most experienced firefighters, seemed supernatural. Charred debris, melted objects, and shattered memories. But in the middle of this desolate landscape, something stood out. The Bible, with its immaculate and flawless pages, rested serenely, as if it hadn't been touched by the catastrophe. Near it, the two statues of Mary and Jesus, perfect and unchanged, reflected the golden light of the setting sun, as though they were under divine protection. The sight left everyone present in shock. How was this possible? Those who were there among the debris began to question. Was this just a flaw in the logic of probabilities, a statistical exception? Or were we facing something much greater, something that defies reason and science? Reports began to spread quickly among the workers and firefighters at the scene. One of them, a man of faith, felt that the air around the statues and the Bible was different. It was as if an inexplicable energy surrounded them, he said, his eyes wide open. Others, not knowing how to explain what they saw, knelt right there in the middle of the ruins, believing they were witnessing a true miracle. The atmosphere was heavy with a dense sensation, something more that made it hard to breathe. When, finally, the Bible was examined more closely, something even more astonishing was discovered. It was opened to a specific passage, a page that seemed to have been carefully chosen, as if an invisible force had guided the exact opening of the book. It wasn't just any page. It was a passage that, for many, carried an urgent message for the moment they were living through. The passage? Matthew 28:20. "And behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." It was a simple message, yet with immense weight. What did this mean? Could it be just a coincidence, a chance happening amid such a great disaster? Or could it be a sign? A reminder, a warning, or even a divine call to humanity, which is drifting further and further from the spiritual in a world of distractions and superficialities? Hollywood, the city where myths and legends are made, where reality is often more fictional than any script, now found itself facing something that could not be explained by any human narrative. The message that emerged from the ashes seemed to transcend all of that. It was something that made us question what is truly eternal in a world so volatile, where the ephemeral is exalted and the material is worshipped. Reports of extraordinary events are not new, but this one, in particular, carried a unique symbolism. The fact that it happened in Hollywood, the heart of entertainment, the land where stories are fabricated and rewritten, made the event even more impressive. It seemed to be a reminder that while we, humans, create narratives, there is a larger narrative being written, a divine narrative that cannot be controlled or manipulated, something that transcends the imaginable, something eternal. And while some tried to find rational explanations, attempting to understand the survival of the Bible and the statues, those who witnessed the event knew that this was more than science and logic. It was something beyond comprehension. As one expert who was on site said, "I'm not a religious person, but in that moment, I felt something I can't describe. It was as if I were standing before something much greater than I am." The tension grew. The debate raged. What then would this event want to tell us? Was it a call to reconnect with the divine? A reminder that despite everything we build, there is something greater that will never be destroyed, something immune to the corruption of time and fire. What are we truly, and where are we going? The answer, perhaps, was right in front of us, in an intact Bible and statues that did not bow to even the fiercest of fires. And while Hollywood continued to produce its stories, this story, the true story, was being written somewhere far beyond the spotlights. Have you ever wondered what would happen if everything around you were destroyed? What would remain? What would truly withstand the fire, literal or metaphorical? When the flames of adversity begin to consume everything around you, what remains steadfast, unchanged? What truly endures when the world around you crumbles? Are we facing an inexplicable chance or something greater, a miracle that calls us to reflect on what is truly lasting and important? Hollywood, known as the center of great narratives, where dream and fiction meet, has always been a place dedicated to the creation of grand stories. The sparkling lights of its studios, the epic films, and the stars that shine as if eternal, everything seems designed to transport us to a world of glamour and perfection. But this time, what happened is not part of fiction. On the contrary, it is a real story that, in a striking way, touched the hearts and minds of all who learned of it. A story that challenges us to go beyond what we know, urging us to question everything we believe to be possible or impossible. Imagine the scene: a historic building, an iconic film studio, the birthplace of some of cinema's greatest productions, being consumed by a devastating fire. Fire on all sides. The heat, so intense that it seemed to swallow everything in its path without mercy. The dark smoke covering the sky, making the world seem to fade away. Every corner of the building, every room filled with precious objects, every historical archive, all seemed destined to disappear in the flames. What would cause a human being, in the face of such destruction, to reflect on what is truly important in their life? What remains when everything around us is being consumed by fire? What is truly unbreakable in our lives? It is in this chaotic scenario that something seemingly impossible happened. Something that couldn't be explained by logic or probabilities. A holy Bible, whose pages were as immaculate as the moment it was printed, and two statues, one of Mary and the other of Jesus, intact, as if enveloped in an invisible protection, a greater force that preserved them from the fire. The immediate question is, how is this possible? Coincidence? Chance? Miracle? Or is it something beyond what human eyes can comprehend? The truth is that, even with rational explanations trying to emerge, what became clear to all those present was that this moment was not just a simple event. It was a sign, an invitation to look beyond the material and the ephemeral, a reminder that there is something beyond what we can see, something that transcends the limits of the mundane. And this is where the story begins to take on another dimension. The Bible, which seemed to have been preserved against all natural laws, was open to a specific page. A detail that, at first glance, might seem like a coincidence, but to many, it was something much more significant. The page was open to Matthew 28:20, and behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. This passage, so simple and yet so profound, seemed to have been placed there to speak directly to the hearts of those who witnessed the event. In a place where fame and wealth are the currencies of exchange, where dreams often become fables and illusions, such a simple and powerful event occurred. The divine presence seemed to manifest, not only in the sacred figures, but also in the message that this passage brought. What was it telling us? What did this event mean in a world that is increasingly distancing itself from the spiritual, in a time when materialism and superficiality dominate our lives? For many, the message was clear. In a world where everything is temporary, where riches can be consumed by flames in an instant, there is something that cannot be destroyed, something that cannot be erased. Faith, hope, and the divine. Something that transcends the fires that burn everything we touch. Something that remains steadfast, even in the face of the greatest chaos. But for others, the explanation was simpler. It's impossible to draw conclusions from a single event, said the skeptics. Maybe the fire didn't directly reach where the objects were, but those who were on site knew that there was no logical explanation that could account for what happened. What they were witnessing was greater than any attempt to rationalize. It was something beyond comprehension, something that touched the soul of everyone present. The testimony of those who witnessed the event was unanimous. Something in the air was different. One of the firefighters, at a loss for words, described the moment as if he were in the presence of a spiritual force. I'm not a religious person, he said, but at that moment, I felt something I can't describe. It was like I was in front of something much bigger than myself. This feeling, shared by many, spread like wildfire, fueling a reflection that could no longer be ignored. What does all this mean? While Hollywood had grown accustomed to creating fictions that touched people's hearts, a true story emerged from the rubble, and this story had something to teach us. The Bible and the sacred images were not consumed, and this was not a coincidence. It wasn't just an extraordinary event. It was a sign, a reminder that while the world around us is consumed by the flames, from difficulties, crises, and even our own failures, there is something that resists, something unshaken, something eternal. The reflection this story provokes goes beyond simple curiosity. It asks us what in our lives could also withstand the fire. What in us is so strong that it could endure life's adversities? What is being preserved, even when everything around us seems to be disintegrating? In a world where everything seems fleeting, where things come and go, this story reminds us of something that cannot be destroyed. Something eternal, something divine. Something that, even in the worst of difficulties, can remain intact, just like the Bible and the statues in Hollywood. Because in the end, it doesn't matter how we interpret the event. What matters is that, amidst the destruction, something precious was preserved, and that in itself is a powerful message. Perhaps in the end, what matters is not the event itself, but what it awakens in each of us. Perhaps we are being called to reflect on what truly matters, on what truly deserves our attention and devotion. And above all, on what in our lives, just like faith, is capable of resisting the fire of adversity and change.